I'll take it back to like seventh grade. Not a lot of people know this about me, but I had a big fascination about breakdancing.
No way. Really?
Yeah, big fast.
Wait, did you actually participate or you just fascinated about it?
I was fascinated, and and the piece of it is I participated it in private. So like whenever,
Oh,
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, where we bring you insight and guidance from successful Black professionals and students. My name is Selvin, and as always, we appreciate the support. So today we have Toby Baker on the show. He is a senior business intelligence consultant. So he's going to talk about what it's like to, do the work that he does, how he got there, and, what that specifically entails. I'm personally invested in this one, as I'm interested in kind of the work that he does. But I'm going to let him, be able to kind of tell you, as he tells us the story of how he got into the space. So, Toby, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Man, thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah. I appreciate this opportunity, man. Like I said, when I met you at the alumni event, this is something I enjoy doing. I can talk about it all day. So glad Absolutely. You had me on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for making the time. So let's start how we always do by asking, who is Toby Baker?
Wow, that's a good question that I really don't have pinned down. But I think for the viewers of your show, Toby Baker is somebody who wasn't supposed to go to college, but ended up going, struggled with learning, but overcame it, graduated, married, family man, transitioned into like a successful computer-based skill, computer-based career, I should say. And like all these things, I never planned. I never thought that I can do any of these things. And so I just want to share my story. Maybe there's somebody out there in college that was in my shoes, almost failing, and maybe I can help turn them around. Believe that something else is it's achievable.
Absolutely. Well, that's the point why we're here, and glad that you're able to kind of tell your story and how you kind of got there, especially knowing that it sounds like you had some, adversity to face. So, so let's start what motivated you to kind of get into, business intelligence, and, what was that path like for you? Because I remember at least one of the first times we talked, you had more of a non-traditional way of getting into it. So, definitely leave you with the floor to share that.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a version that I give during interviews, but I'll give you like the real version because there's somebody out there that may be in similar boat. My senior year in college, I came across organizational psychology, and it was a class I was just checking the box in order to graduate. I took the class and I fell in love with it. So I think that's the number one thing is to go outside your boundaries. You never know what you may discover. But I said to myself, man, if I had an extra year, I would change my major to organizational behavior or organizational psychology or something like that because I really liked it. Well, fast forward a few years, I was working for an HR firm, and I was recruited. I was recruiting people in the IT world, like IT professionals overseas, and I was recruiting them to come work here in the United States. And it was extremely hard. And English was not their first language. So I had to not only look beyond the difficulties of listening and understanding what they're saying, but I had to discern whether or not they knew how to use the tool that I was recruiting for. And so there's only one way to do that. And that's for you to understand what the tool is yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I started exploring these tools. I started taking books home with me. I started reading about them. I started downloading some of them. And I was like, whoa, and unfortunately, again, this is the raw version. This is not what I would use in an interview where I'm, going for a job.
Yeah.
But I started focusing way more time and energy into the software and tools than actually the recruiting itself. And one of my managers, he saw that, and instead of disciplining me, he was like, Toby, why don't you work on this project? So he gave me a project to, our system kept going down. So he gave me a project to build out the system using Excel and VBA, the coding aspect of Excel. So I built it, and then my one opportunity came, the system went down, and the recruits were still able to recruit because we still had this online data, the database, the Excel database that I created. And I was like, that's it right there. Yeah. And that was like the beginning of it all.
Nice.
How it transferred into this career.
Yeah. So you just got curious about, well, not necessarily curious. Well, yes, curious, but also you felt a need to kind of do a little bit of double work because of the whole language barrier. And then, I think, especially when it comes to teaching, you don't really realize how much you know until you actually have to teach it. So you kind of had to teach yourself in a sense to be able to just kind of do what you were hired to do. But in doing so, you then kind of discovered, okay, this is what they're actually working with. This is actually something that's actually pretty interesting. And it's great when you do have, supervisors or managers who can recognize that curiosity, right? And then be able to kind of give you extra things, kind of test the waters and see what you can do with it. And, for you saw that as an opportunity and you kind of went with that. And then that started to grow into what you're doing now. Can you talk about like what it is about, just like working with this specific software that's, arranging data and, being in this analytic space? What is it that, really drives you or gets you excited when it comes to that specific work?
One thing that kept me excited since day one is two things. One, the ability to build something that makes people go, wow. Like, let's say that it built I built a dashboard that replaced some old Excel file that they used to use. And the dashboard has exactly what they want, like on the first page, so they can read it real fast. Mm-hmm. Whenever I would say that would be one. And then two is not having a computer science degree, which most of my colleagues do, but still being able to do what they do. It's like that drives me knowing that I came from a non-traditional background, but like I'm working hard, to get where I am. So those two things, I think, got me started. But one thing I wanted to go back on, and I think it would be helpful to anybody who wants to come into the space is, when I was a recruiter and I was researching and my manager told me to help the other recruiters understand what these technical roles are doing. I described it this way. So there's major roles on a data analytics team, and you may not know what all those roles are, but this is how I help the other recruiters learn what the role is. And I just use an analogy of like a house, of building a house. So you have your architects, you have your developers, you have your project managers, and then you have your visual analyst or your UI experts, depending on what type of team you're on. You build in a house, you have a team, you build in a house together. You need somebody to be able to build the structure of the house and determine, how the framework would be developed. And that's the architects. Then you have the developers who come in and they do the inner workings of like the circuits and the everything that goes within the drywalls to make sure that all the energy flows the correct way, and they set it up so that the business analyst or the visual analyst can come in and they can paint the walls and they can beautify the windows and everything else. And meanwhile, you have somebody who's going through this entire process and making sure that it's moving successfully. And that's the project manager. Project manager, they make sure that everybody's doing their job and the job is completed at the time, the estimated time of delivery that you project at the beginning. So You can't build a house without those roles. You have to, without the architect, the developers, the business analyst, or UI, visual analyst, and then last but not least, the project manager. And then last but not least, you can just add it on. You have the business user who is purchasing a house, and you have to be able to develop the house the way that they want it to. They may tell you to do something that is totally out the norm of the structure. And you have to have one of those people like the architect speak up and say, you can't really do that, but this is what we can do to help accommodate, your needs. So you need all those roles in order to help successfully build a data analytics project. And like, if you think about the house analogy, maybe you can envision yourself in one of those specific roles and say, I think I would like that aspect better than the other.
Yeah, no, great breakdown on all the different spaces that you can occupy, like you said, within this house analogy, right? And because they do require certain skills that maybe people naturally would have, but they're all directly related to, the information and whatever that, business outcome is. So that was definitely probably the best ways that I've seen it. I've seen it in a chart, but to have it as an analogy where people can kind of grasp onto it, because they do know that, there are certain people that have certain levels of expertise and they can work on one specific thing, but they need everybody to kind of get that house together. Definitely a great way to break that down. So I definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd be more marketable. You'd be more valuable in the market if you do more than one of those roles.
Exactly.
You be an end developer. Ooh, you make a lot of money. You can play with a lot of tools too. You can learn a lot of different software.
Exactly. Just to kind of fiddle around and explore, So yeah, like I said, I appreciate the breakdown of that. Another question I have for you is just but who opened doors for you? I know that you said that, your supervisor was one person who kind of recognized that this was something, that, someone who I'm, who's directly reporting to me, can kind of explore and possibly be, an asset to either the office or the company as a whole. Was there anybody else who you ran into kind of within this journey? It could even be before you even got into the space itself. But either, encourage you, provided you with some kind of support. I think it's good to kind of identify those people, where they can come from, because they can be in expected places or unexpected places. And maybe identifying who helped you could help somebody kind of keep an eye out for those type of people.
As you were asking the question, I was just reminiscing on all the people that, like, you had to give me some parameters, like you did earlier. You said, since you joined the career, because if I go back to my Marquette days, there was a lot of people who were there for me, teachers, black staff,
Mm-hmm.
Administrators. Oh my God. And just people in the community too. But if I had to stick with just the career-wise, one of my first opportunities, I'm so sorry, I can't think of her name. I owe so much to her. I have her face, and her demeanor, her leadership demeanor in my head. But I can't think of her name. But she was like a VP at the company, and I was going around telling everybody about this software that I love called Tableau, and it's a dashboard building tool that anybody can use. It's like the future of Excel. How everybody uses Excel, everybody will use Tableau one day. Well, I was going around telling everybody about this tool and how our company should adopt this tool. And one day she said that we're going to start a team, and we will be using Tableau, and you will be the first member of this team. And I was like, oh, wow. I said, yes, I'll take the opportunity. And I took it. I didn't even ask about the money, which I definitely encourage each and every one of you to, no matter how exciting the role is, you ask the question about the money. You ask them how much, you ask the recruiter what's the budget that they have for this role before you tell them how much you make. At the time, I was so excited about the opportunity just to play with Tableau. And there was a great person already on the team. She was like a BA/PM. Like she used to kill it. And I learned so much about preparation and how to keep myself organized from her. And then we started adding more people to the team. And then we had this really nice, like a director of analytics come on board. He started taking me to his office, teaching me about like the inner workings of like database, data warehouses, and like the theory, not the theory, but the strategy behind running that analyst team. It's like, whoa, like it's like I was learning while working on a job. So I'll say that initial time in my life where the leader, the VP came and told me to come on the team, that analyst, that BA, that PM would helping me being organized. Organized the chaos is what we used to call it. And then that director who taught me so much. So I would say that time in my life, if I had to, man, I'm eliminating a lot of people as I started to think of more people. I would say that group right there gave me like that initial energy, like to chase this career.
Absolutely. So, and I think and I don't know how long you were, campaigning for Tableau at the time, but it must have been long enough for someone to hear, or for that VP, or for just words to kind of get up, because you might not have even known if they were even talking about it while you were kind of really really celebrating this platform. So to know that there was really this unofficial spokesperson that's in our team. They know the program. That's a person that we're getting on board. And I know we talked about kind of making your presence known a little bit off air. And that's something that you did, not even really seeking, that type of, promotion, that opportunity, but, for the fact that you were just excited, and you were kind of putting that out there, in a professional way, of course. But that led to, where you're at. And, so like I said before, it's really good to have that type of support coming from the top down, and that recognition, to kind of lead to these different opportunities. So I'm glad that was there for you. And so now what advice would you give to a Black student who's looking to get into the space? So whether they are, whether they're in school now and now kind of recognizing that this is something that they can do, or if they're already in their professional life, or maybe even in high school, or whatever the case is, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to get into this space? Because I'm sure that there are not too many of us that are, in the space that you're in. Based off of your experience, what would you tell them, as they're kind of moving to work within data?
If I had the ability to just hop on a plane, just go and travel and meet other people in this field that look like me, I would do it in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, most of the people that I do know, I know them from being online, like places like LinkedIn, and commenting and liking each other posts and things like that. Mm-hmm. But one thing I would say is I remember a mentor of mine. I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and a mentor of mine said, "It's something so simple, but it's actually, as you actually do it, it's very profound." He was saying within the context of my desk location, he said, "Don't take the same route back to your desk. Don't take the same route back to your desk. Essentially, take different paths each and every time. You never know who you're gonna meet. You never know what you may discover." And a lot of the relationships that I built came from that one philosophy: never take the same route back to my desk. Mm. And so I would say that to any Black student who's in college right now, or is like a recent grad. Like, don't do the exact same thing. Like, take a different route. Whether it's to your classroom, take a different route. Whether you're driving home, take a different route. Whether you're determining where to go out to eat, which side of town to go out to eat on, like which grad school you want to go to, like where you think you may meet the one, like go somewhere, like take a different route that you normally would take. Just just venture off. You never know what you may come across. And my entire life is a testament to that. Like just being someplace that I never envisioned myself being, meeting somebody who was like the sponsor or the person who helped bring me over to their side of the world or share their perspective with me. So that's what I would say to any Black student. It's like just venture off, explore. You know?
Yeah, no, that is really actually very profound. I'm just kind of thinking about that, and for myself, because there's a certain level of comfort that we not necessarily look for, but just want to make sure that we kind of feel safe and as we are moving towards a certain goal, right? So it's hard to break that, maybe because of past experiences or things that we've seen. But I think that kind of leaves room to be a little bit more intentional of taking that different routes, or taking a little bit more time to still feel safe, within that different route, because then you get an opportunity to explore something or look at something a different way. That's actually really good advice. I'm actually going to start, implementing that myself. But it is pretty. Go ahead.
So this is like on a personal note, like when we was hanging out the other night, afterwards, me and my wife, we just started venturing off, and we found this one really nice like lounge place. It's really nice. I text one of my buddies, like, we got to come back here. Yeah. Text another person, like, let's have lunch here. Like we discovered something like just totally like, randomly. And so this applies not just to career, but just anywhere in life, just venture off.
Yeah, no, it's I'm gonna write that down. I have it in my head. I'm gonna write it down though. So because that is really good. And even to hear that as a college student, I'm sure that's I'm sure like with kind of being on a schedule and all this other stuff, you still have a little bit of room, especially compared to once you actually get into your professional life, to do a little bit of exploring in that manner by taking the long way to get to class or whatever the case is. So
there's so much. Like you have so much more time in college than afterwards, especially as you develop like a family and a career. Like you have a lot more time than you think. And I promise I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure my kids don't have time, that they do have time while they're in college, like where they don't have to work if they don't need to. Like it's those relationships that you build from just venturing off that will last a lifetime. You never know how a relationship can be there for you, or you may even develop a very tight friendship with somebody. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do what I can to make sure my kids have, at that time in their life when they have the most time, where it means the most when it comes to where you go directionally after you graduate, and who you will stay connected with. Like, and college, one thing I always say, I know it's somewhat off topic, but college is the one place is what that has the I want to say this without using any cliche words.
Yeah.
In college, you have people who will go into careers that you will not have any interest in. They will do things that you may not even step foot into the type of office that they have, like a veterinarian or some kind of. I met somebody I don't remember the name, but it has something to do with brain, being a brain doctor. And for like the first 10 minutes of the conversation, I thought he said he was a psychologist. And I'm like, but afterwards, as he started explaining, he started talking. It's something similar to a psychologist. I never would have ever imagined having a coffee with him and his wife. But it's because of the relationship that I built with them when we was in school that we had a coffee 8 years after we graduated, Yeah. So college is the one place where you have the most time to meet as many people from many different walks of life. If you can, just venture off, like meet those people and try to build a solid relationship with them, so that, many, many years from now, you may be able to help them find a job, or, you may just sit down over a coffee, start reminiscing over times, in college. So Absolutely. Use that time wisely, but you do have a lot of time.
Yeah. No, I definitely second all of that. Appreciate that piece there. Now, how do you define success? What does that actually look like to you? As you're, trying to meet all of these, personal, career, short and long-term goals. What's at the core of that in terms of what you strive to get to?
Um, Definition of success is when you can look back on your life and you see how far you came.
Mm-hmm.
If it's far, then you're successful.
Yeah.
I keep it short so we can catch up.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No, yeah, I appreciate it. No, but I mean, that's very true to be able to kind of, especially if you make the time to be able to look back and reflect on it and everything, you're able to kind of see all of those milestones that you hit. Because we can always kind of keep going and just kind of keep going, and not be able to really look back and kind of see how far we went. So I definitely appreciate that definition there. Now, finally, just to kind of get a better idea of you, what's something that you look at now completely differently now that you're an adult? It could be something as simple as, a cartoon that you watch, or just, something, a little bit more profound. But what is something that you look at differently now, kind of in the space that you're in versus like maybe when you were in college or when you were in high school?
I know what I want to say, but I don't have the words to say it. So I try to describe it, and maybe you can summarize it because you're good at that. When I'm in a moment, I don't recognize it. I'm not able to see it from my outsider's point of view. But when I'm older and I come back to that situation, I'm viewing it as like an outsider, and most of the time I say to myself, man, I can't believe that my mind was like I was limited at that moment in my life. I don't think I'm. Let me give you an example. Maybe the example will help.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do is I like to go back to the house that I grew up in. I had some great times in the house that I grew up in. I have a ton of memories. And at that time, the house was so big, and there was the neighborhood. There were so many different things to do with so many different people.
Yeah.
And that was like my adventure at the time. That was when I come and take a step back, I realized how small of a limitation, how when I come back, I realize that for me in that moment of life, that was big. And as I keep doing that, as I age and I keep going back, like I just went to Marquette University's campus a couple of weekends ago.
Represent.
I got to represent. And it changed my life. I have to represent, as I go back to even Marquette campus, I go back and I say, wow, like I was just limiting myself to like just these portions of the campus. Like there's this other place on campus. This is dorm over here on campus I'd never even been inside of. Like I realized how small I limited myself while I was on campus, which is even more, even though I ventured off, there's so much venturing I didn't even do. And so what is my world now? What's the extent of my world now? And how would I look at that, while I'm older? And what barriers or what areas that are untapped that I need to venture off into? And recently it's been just giving effort, just being able to analyze myself and say, can I give more? Yes, I can. And give more and give more effort in that regard, in all areas of my life, like to push my boundaries outwards. But that's just something as I age, I look back and say, man, like that was my world, and what limitations do I currently have that I need to break beyond?
Yeah. It's like it's like your perspective gets bigger, like as you get older, and then when you revisit, you're kind of seeing like the inner circle of like whatever your like perspective is, and you're seeing, okay, this is how I saw, this world. I saw like a fraction of what I'm seeing it as now. Like I came back to my hometown. That's where I'm at now. And, and to kind of see like the same downtown area, that I would, frequent when I was in high school, and notice, okay, I didn't know that this store was here, or this bakery was here, or this mural was within this viaduct here. Like because your perspective is on on certain things, or you have sometimes like tunnel vision in some cases, because you're focused on one thing, and now you go back to that same area, especially once you've kind of gone out in the world and broaden your perspective, and you bring it back to a place where you kind of saw a fraction of it. Then you're like, oh, okay. Oh, well, I would have gone to this place if I would have actually seen it, or I would have, for me personally, I would have, led this school organization, a little bit differently if I had, a little bit more of a perspective. But, I think for you to be able to take that time to go back and reflect that, I think that continues to kind of make your perspective a little bit bigger, because sometimes you don't have control on how small things you see things. So that's pretty dope though.
Oh yeah. You're so good at paraphrasing, and I want you to help me and some of your viewers really think about how to expand the fraction of what we are able to tap into currently. How to expand that, so one day when we come back and we can look back and say, wow, I really enjoyed my time in my life. I've met so many people. I've explored so much. Like, how can I want us to be able to continuously come back to a time in our lives and see our fraction expanding more and more over time. So how can we do that? How do you think we can do that?
I think one thing that I would equate it to, and maybe you've had this occurrence, but let's say that let's take like your route to work or route to the grocery store or something like that, and you get to a red light, and let's say that you've never looked to the right. Like you've never looked to the right, like you've never kind of seen what was outside the right window at that same stoplight. Just randomly, just think and like, okay, let me take a look here before I start driving. Because I've done that a number of times, and there's like some houses that I've never seen before, just because, as you're driving, you're focused on a certain thing. So you can equate that to, kind of, whatever your perspective is in that moment. So being a little bit more intentional to kind of look the other way, or kind of look towards ways that you wouldn't necessarily look to. And you don't have to have a reason to do it, but just be more mindful of being able to kind of go through and looking in those different directions. So I would say that would be a way for us to expand our perspective in the moment, as opposed to just going back to those same spaces and, reflecting on how it's expanded over time. I would say doing the combination of both. You can be in that moment, grow your perspective before even leaving, grow that even more, come back, and then you can kind of see, okay, I can actually see the growth when I was actually in that moment, and I can see the growth when I left and explored whatever that was. So I would say just be more intentional of looking in different directions, with or without purpose. I would say that's the way to do it.
So let me ask you another question. So if we were to go back to a specific time in your life, and you probably already done this before, and let's say like an old house that you grew up in, or your university that you graduated from, you look back and you go back and you say, wow, like that was my perspective at the time. Can you pick a specific situation, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
And then like maybe suggest to your younger self, like you would have done this, this, and that. And then, maybe there's like something that I can extract or your viewers can extract from that experience.
Yeah. I'll take it back to like 7th grade. Not a lot of people know this about me, but I had a big fascination about breakdancing.
Really?
Yeah. Big
wait, did you actually participate or you just fascinated about it?
I was fascinated, and the piece of it is I participated it in private. So like whenever, so whenever,
okay. I already know what it is.
Yeah. So whenever, like, I'm in my, parents' basement, right. And I am, I'm looking up, like, there's this one website that had all the moves and it had like the step-by-steps in the videos. I want to say it was bboy.org. I want to say it was bboy.org. And
bboy.org. I'm gonna look it up.
I don't know if it's still on there. I don't know if it's still around. It might, or breakdance.org or something like that. But I would go there. And I would like study the steps, whether I was able to do it or not. And I would do this in private. But at the time I was so shy and I didn't want to showcase this, talent or whatever that I had or what I was trying to figure out. I'm in my, family's basement and, I hear somebody coming down the stairs and I'm like practicing. I was straighten up. Because
so
I was,
don't get caught.
Because and some part of me is like, I don't want to be in the spotlight, and that some of that kind of stays with me. But I know the value of being able to share something, something like that with somebody. And if I were to go back to that point and I were to, try to find a way to kind of like expand that or expand my way of thinking, because it was like, I didn't want to embarrass myself. That was like the reason why I didn't kind of showcase the stuff. I would just say, just do it and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? That someone, because a lot of people might actually see this and be like, and you don't think you're doing it right, but they could be thinking you're doing the most amazing thing possible. So having the courage to do that, which is, easier said than done, but also think of it is trying to reduce the number of what if questions that you have later on. Because if you reflect back and you have like 5 what if questions, then that's just like an opportunity that you could have taken more advantage of, despite whatever fears that you have. So somebody told me, to ask the question, is a good reason to be scared for whatever you're kind of contemplating on doing? Is it because you're, if it's like jumping off a cliff, yeah, that's a good reason to be scared to not do that. But if it's like, I'm afraid that I'm not, showing it off right or whatever the case is, may not be as significant as a reason to not showcase whatever it is or share something that you have with the world that could impact somebody. So that's that's one moment that I would go back to and try to change a little bit differently. I'm sure that would have a more significant trajectory on where I'm at.
So you had to. So was this like in your early 20s? Was it like in your teenage years? Was it like in your adolescence? Like single digits?
7th grade. This was 7th grade.
Oh, so you was like in middle school then?
I was in middle school.
Yeah, you was like what, 12?
12, 13, 14. Yeah, like 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was
I gotta ask you, when was the last time you tried?
Oh man. The summer of, let's see. It was during college. It was actually, it was funny. I say that now. There was a time where we went to our downtown area. We got some cardboard and we put it in like the Fountain Square area. And like, it was like 4 or 5 of us. And it was like a Run DMC video. We were kind of going back and forth. We were jumping in, jumping out, and just doing whatever. Somebody had like an actual boombox, not like a Bluetooth speaker. Yeah, like CDs and everything. So, yeah,
Can you still buy those?
Nah.
Wait, I'm about to look it up. Yeah, Amazon got one.
Yeah. As soon as the streaming thing happened, I'm saying, man, I don't need to buy a CD, but like there's this nostalgia of doing that. But
what?
But
they
I'm
still
like,
sell it.
Yeah,
they still sell it. You
see? There you go. Yeah.
So you want one?
Sure.
It's only $43.
Yeah, but I would say that would be a moment to kind of go back and if I had the moment to expand the perspective at the moment, then that's what I would go back to that place.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I like that. And because I think the suggestion that you make, I know we're supposed to be talking about that.
Oh, you're good.
But the point that you want to make is that there was like something symbolic of who you were, about your personality at the time, and there are still some elements that may have stuck with you within about that story, but you at least know about well enough about yourself to know that that's a specific area you can grow in. And I think that's something that anybody can do if they can actually take time to analyze themselves and know that this is something that I was struggling with when I was younger. Am I still struggling with it now? Or is there any aspects of who I was when I was younger that I worked on, or that was like a positive or highlight about who I am, or the core of who I am today? So like a little bit of self-reflection, I don't think will hurt anybody.
Oh yeah. Self-awareness is more powerful than you think it is, So I appreciate reversing the interview on me. And everything. So, but Toby, thanks so much for sharing your perspective in this manner. We're going to get to the kind of a day in life of what it's like to be, a business, a business intelligence consultant, in the next episode. But, we'll have all your contact information in the description here. But if anything, thanks for sharing this part. And then thanks to everybody who's been watching and listening. Feel free to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. That's at Inquire Higher. You can check out our website, inquirehigher.com. We got a lot of great information there. And you can also contact us at contact@inquirehigher.com by email. So until next time, peace.